So let's take the flavors of the coq au vin and let's turn this into a utility dish. 2 strips of bacon begin the flavor, and that's a real classic coq au vin style to get things going. And while we're waiting, I'm just gonna quarter some button mushrooms. I have 10 ounces, and you have bacon, you have mushrooms. I remember when I first made this, I set out really to make a coq au vin, a classic coq au vin, and as usually happens to me, I had so much meat, too many people, I had to really stretch it, and I thought, okay, what are we gonna do here? So I end up in a casserole here, only my casserole is all here in the same pot I'm cooking everything in. And you can do that if you have an oven to table casserole like this one, which is something everyone should have in their kitchen, especially if they're cooking for a lot of people and they're doing it frequently. But if not, you can just actually end up just folding the whole thing into a 9 by 13 glass dish or whatever works for you. And that actually was one of the amazing things about Julia Child. She never made you feel like if you weren't perfect, you couldn't cook. She had impeccable French technique. Of course, she went and learned it and studied it like any unbelievable discipline. But she was funny, and she made you feel like if you messed up in the kitchen, no big deal. She also made you feel that if you were a cook and you were, cooking away in the privacy of your own home, well, darn it, you could taste something if you wanted to. No one was gonna know. So we have our mushrooms here all set to go, and I just wanna make sure that this bacon is fine. You want it cooked enough to render out some of that fat, and I think that looks just fine. And what I do, because I'm just trying to keep everything in one pan, is get these bacon pieces out of the pan. And I'm doing a little bit of a no-no. When I have enamel cast iron, I don't generally like to use metal, but I'm being very careful. So it's okay if I break my own rule right now. It's like if you scrape it, it's not good. But I'm gonna help it a little bit with my wooden spoon here. So what I have right here is I have some oil and some fat, and boy, do I love that she loved fat. She never shied away from butter. She said, hey, you know what? Eat moderately, but eat what tastes good. And boy, am I with her on that one. All right, what I have next is boneless chicken thighs. Oh yeah, and you can hear it. You can hear that sizzle. I'm gonna turn it up even more, actually. When you're cooking with bacon, the skillet can get pretty hot, so you gotta pay attention to that. I have a pot of boiling water over here, because another one of my twists in my casserole is stirring in noodles, so I have to cook them. One last piece. Get this into the garbage. All right. The next thing I want here is about 1/3 cup of flour, because I'm starting to thicken up a bit because we're now going from coq au vin to casserole. And as we do that, we want to have a little bit of thickness because we want to have a nice amount of liquid to mix in our noodles and everything else I'm putting in here. So you have your flour, which you need to mix in with this liquid and let it cook off just a tiny little bit, which means you get that raw flavor off the flour. And then to that, I have 1½ cups of chicken stock. And we are nearing the end of this operation. Don't forget I have my noodles in there, 1 pound of noodles cooking. Get this in, mix it around. It's gonna thicken up a little bit because of the flour and get a little bit of a loose sauce going. It seems perhaps a little loose here, but it's going to be perfect by the time we bring everything together. So I'm just gonna take a second here and mix everything up. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. And just turn it down a little bit because I don't want to bubble it away too much. So back in goes everything else. Our beautiful bacon bits, back in. Our chicken, back in. And there's beautiful juices on the bottom there, so you don't want to forget your juices. No, I'm kidding. So you don't want to forget your juices when you're pouring your chicken back in the pan. All right, that's nice. So that can just bubble away for a second. And I'm going to drain the noodles, which are all cooked. So I don't have a facial, I'm just going to put my head back. All right, now we're moving full on into casserole world. We put our noodles in here and we mix it up a little bit, just to make sure that the noodles are mixed with the sauce and the mushrooms and the chicken and everything else. And then we have 2 cups of grated Muenster cheese. And that's also taken a page from the casserole. And mix it up. Now we're going into a 375-degree oven, and the noodles were slightly undercooked, called al dente, so that by the time it turns into a casserole, the noodles are perfectly cooked. And then one last thing I'm going to do is just make sure that these chicken thighs are distributed. And now, lastly, I have a cup of panko breadcrumbs. You could probably use any breadcrumbs you want, but I have found that panko, which certainly was not something in the store when Julia Childs was cooking, are crunchy, and they're a wonderful thing to top this with. And it just gives it the beautiful crunch at the end. A little bit of paprika for some beautiful color, and a drizzle of olive oil, and boom, it goes right in the oven. That's it. Thanks for watching. Hungry for more? Click here for more great recipes, and to subscribe, click here. Check back every week for more craveable recipes, leave a comment, and tell me what you think. And don't forget, head over to our other channels for Everyday Food with Sarah Carey, Martha Stewart Weddings, and the Martha Stewart Channel.